Everything just changed. Again, just 5 minutes ago, Keir Starmer left the nation reeling with a sudden, massive announcement, one that came right on the heels of a 3 million-strong public demand for new elections. This isn't just political drama, it's a full-blown crisis unraveling in real time. What Starmer revealed has stunned not only his supporters, but also his fiercest critics. For weeks, pressure has mounted, voices have grown louder, and today, it all came to a breaking point. The UK stands at the edge of a political cliff, and what's unfolding now could alter the entire course of the nation's future. Is this the response the people were waiting for, or just another empty gesture to cling to power? Stay with us as we unpack the shockwaves of Starmer's announcement, the brewing fury across the country, and what this moment truly means for the future of British democracy. Tensions have been building for months, but the last 48 hours have pushed the UK into unprecedented territory. A tidal wave of anger, betrayal, and demand for action has exploded across social media, news headlines, and Parliament itself. More than 3 million citizens, yes, 3 million, have signed an online petition demanding one simple thing: a general election. This isn't just digital noise, it's a thunderous cry for real change. For far too long, voters have watched promises dissolve into silence. Hope has turned into disillusionment, and the people are done waiting. Amidst the rising outrage, Keir Starmer, leader of the Labour Party, has found himself at the centre of this storm. Once seen as a beacon of reform and renewal, he now faces the chilling reality of eroding public trust. Approval ratings have plummeted. The people who once rallied behind his vision are now asking one question: what happened to the leader we believed in? This petition is not just a statement. It's an alarm bell ringing from every corner of the nation. And now, the pressure has reached boiling point. Just this morning, murmurs inside Westminster suggested Starmer could no longer afford to stay silent. Insiders hinted that something was coming. Journalists were called in. Security tightened. Then just minutes ago, Starmer stepped forward and dropped the bombshell: a national address, a major shift, and a direct response to the petition. But was it enough? Starmer's announcement, while wrapped in calm rhetoric, carried the weight of a man cornered. He didn't outright call for an election, but he did something no one expected. He admitted failure. He acknowledged the pain, the frustration, and, most importantly, the voices of the millions demanding to be heard. In a rare moment of candor, he stated, "We cannot ignore the will of the people. It's clear something has to change." But what does something mean? That's the question rattling through every political commentator's mind right now. Is this the first step toward a snap election? Or is Starmer simply buying time, trying to cool the fire before it consumes his leadership entirely? What's undeniable is this: the tone of his message was unlike anything we've heard before. This wasn't a defiant politician doubling down. This was a leader visibly shaken, trying to walk a narrow line between accountability and survival. He spoke about national renewal, the need to rebuild trust, and even hinted at party-wide reform. Yet he stopped short of giving the public what they really want: a vote, a choice, a reset. As millions watch from their homes, their phones, and their communities, one truth stands clear: this isn't over. If anything, it's only just begun. The people have spoken, and now they wait to see if their voices will lead to real action, or if this will be remembered as just another empty performance from a political class that's lost its way. Keir Starmer's address, delivered just minutes after the petition demanding new elections passed the 3 million signature mark, was not your typical political speech. It wasn't filled with loud applause, victory claims, or overconfident promises. Instead, it was quiet, controlled, measured. But behind that calm delivery was something more urgent, a sense of desperation carefully disguised as resolve. What the public witnessed was not just a politician responding to pressure, but a man standing at the crossroads of his career, forced to confront a rapidly disintegrating political landscape. Starmer began by acknowledging the elephant in the room. He didn't waste time dodging the growing calls for an election. Instead, he did something unusual for a modern political leader. He admitted that the current government had failed to meet the moment. Without naming names, Starmer called the political system fractured, distant, and unworthy of the public's trust. And for the first time, he addressed the petition directly, calling it a powerful reminder that democracy does not end with the ballot box. It lives through the people's continued voice. This statement alone set off a wildfire of speculation. Was he about to announce a snap election? Would he step down as party leader, or was he simply offering polished words with no real action behind them? What followed next gave even more fuel to the fire. Starmer laid out a new 5-point plan, a sweeping set of proposals aimed at rebuilding trust and restoring faith in leadership. This plan included increased government transparency, stricter lobbying reforms, a complete audit of public spending under the current administration, and even the introduction of a Citizen Accountability Forum, a panel made up of everyday citizens tasked with holding elected officials to account. It sounded bold, it sounded visionary, but it also sounded like a distraction, because nowhere in that 5-point plan was the one thing people demanded the most: a general election. Starmer mentioned opening the door to future democratic renewal and exploring avenues for public engagement beyond traditional models. But these phrases felt carefully crafted to avoid giving a clear answer. The core demand, returning the mandate to the people, remained unaddressed, and that's exactly why his announcement, while dramatic, has already begun to divide the nation. In the hours since his address, reactions have poured in from across the political spectrum. Supporters praised the speech as refreshingly honest, a rare acknowledgement of systemic failure by someone in power. But critics are calling it exactly what they feared: a political stunt meant to pacify public outrage without changing anything. Real social media exploded within minutes. Hashtags like "We want the vote," "No more delays," and "Starmer dodges again" have begun trending, with thousands accusing Starmer of talking around democracy rather than walking toward it. Even within his own party, murmurs of dissent are growing louder. Several backbench Labour MPs, who have remained silent until now, are reportedly preparing public statements demanding clarity on whether Starmer intends to back a vote. Others are considering breaking ranks entirely, believing that failing to act now could destroy what remains of the party's credibility. And then there's the opposition. Tory leaders, sensing weakness, have already gone on the offensive. One senior Conservative figure was quoted saying, "Starmer's speech was a masterclass in saying everything and nothing. If he truly believes in the will of the people, why doesn't he trust them to vote?" This sentiment, though coming from political rivals, is being echoed by a growing number of disillusioned citizens who once supported Labour's return to power. Outside Westminster, the atmosphere is shifting, from frustration to fury. Protesters have started gathering outside Parliament, and word is spreading of a possible mass rally in London this weekend. Organisers of the original petition have released a statement calling Starmer's announcement a clever sidestep, adding that the people asked for elections, not another empty reform plan. The media, too, has turned its focus towards Starmer's real motives. Major outlets are dissecting every word, analysing body language, tone, and even facial expressions during the address. Some noted the lack of enthusiasm from his own press. Team. No applause, no celebration, just a cold silence that hung in the air as Starmer exited the stage. Others pointed to his unusual pacing, the way he avoided eye contact with the cameras when mentioning accountability, and the repeated use of vague language when discussing timelines for implementation. So where does this leave the country now? In a word, limbo. The government hasn't fallen, elections haven't been called, but faith in leadership has been pushed to the brink. Starmer's calculated gamble to offer reforms without surrendering. Control may buy him some time, but time is running out. Every hour that passes without a definitive answer only adds fuel to a political fire that's already roaring out of control. In the next section, we'll explore how the public's reaction is quickly turning into a full-blown movement. We'll look at what grassroots organizers are planning next, how key figures in British politics are positioning themselves, and why this moment might just trigger one of the biggest power shifts in modern UK history. As Starmer's carefully worded announcement continues to echo across the political landscape, the reaction outside Westminster is growing louder, more organized, more emotional, and more dangerous for those in power. What began as digital outrage has now become a tangible physical movement, and for the first time in years, the corridors of Parliament are trembling, not from the voice of opposition parties, but from the unstoppable momentum of the people themselves. Within hours of Starmer's statement, crowds began forming in key city centres across the UK: London, Manchester, Birmingham, Liverpool. Streets that once buzzed with everyday routine now hum with protest chants, banners waving high. Above angry faces, each one carrying a single unshakable message: we demand an election, now. Organisers of the viral petition that surpassed 3 million signatures have mobilised at record speed. They've transformed public frustration into a national movement with planned protests, press conferences, and even coordinated blackouts of social media content to symbolize the growing disillusionment with traditional media and political messaging. The energy feels different this time. It isn't just students or the politically active who are flooding the streets. It's pensioners, nurses, ex-servicemen, small business owners, and even those who previously disengaged from politics entirely. What's bringing them together isn't loyalty to a party, but an overwhelming sense of betrayal, the belief that they've been lied to, ignored, and manipulated by the very system meant to represent them. And the spark that lit this fire wasn't just Starmer's reluctance to announce an election. It was the growing suspicion that his promises are a smokescreen, a distraction to preserve control until the Labour Party can reassert itself securely in the next official general election. The idea that reforms will come eventually feels like an insult to those suffering today, from the cost of living crisis, broken NHS promises, housing shortages, and the deepening sense that the UK is being run by leaders more loyal to optics than to people. Meanwhile, the media's role in this moment has become a battleground in itself. While traditional networks like the BBC and Sky News aired Starmer's speech with the expected analysis, independent journalists and digital creators are tearing apart the message line by line, exposing contradictions, highlighting empty phrases, and demanding accountability in real time. The rise of political influencers and grassroots reporters is shifting power away from state-controlled narratives. In a world where a TikTok video or YouTube expose can rack up millions of views in hours, control over public opinion no longer belongs to politicians alone. Social media platforms have turned into arenas of confrontation. The hashtag #ChooseUKDeservesAVote has become a rallying cry, appearing on protest signs, trending globally on X, formerly Twitter, and dominating Instagram Reels. But beyond the digital storm, something far more serious is brewing. Sources within Scotland Yard have confirmed that security briefings have increased as authorities brace for what could become the largest wave of civil unrest since the 2011 London riots. Intelligence officials are monitoring online channels closely, wary of more radical elements exploiting the momentum to incite chaos. Despite the threat of escalation, protest leaders have vowed to remain peaceful. Their message is clear. They will not stop until a date for elections is set. Not in a few months, not next year, now. Pressure is also mounting on other Labour MPs to take a stand. Internal leaks suggest a growing number of them are frustrated with Starmer's hesitation, fearful that the longer this drags on, the more it risks destroying their credibility and their re-election chances. Rumours are swirling of a potential internal challenge to Starmer's leadership if he refuses to deliver a clearer timeline within the week. Across the aisle, Conservative leaders are exploiting the moment. For them, this crisis offers a lifeline, a chance to position themselves as the true defenders of democratic choice. But make no mistake, this isn't a resurgence of Tory popularity. It's political opportunism at its finest. Both major parties are being viewed with suspicion, and for the first time in decades, talk of a third political force rising to power no longer feels like fantasy. Independent candidates and fringe parties have already begun announcing their intention to run if snap elections are called. From Reform UK to the Greens, there's a surge of new contenders stepping forward, many with viral social media followings, direct connections to local communities, and a bold willingness to reject the traditional rules of politics. If an election is forced in the coming weeks, it won't just be a fight between red and blue. It will be a war for the soul of the country. In response to this seismic shift, Buckingham Palace has remained silent, but insiders report that the king is being kept fully informed of the situation. While it's unlikely that the monarch will intervene directly, the gravity of the situation has raised questions about constitutional authority and what happens if a government refuses to acknowledge the public's demand for an electoral reset. And still, Keir Starmer remains firm. At least publicly. His team has issued statements affirming his commitment to listening to the people while emphasizing that reforms take time. But behind the scenes, insiders claim that panic is growing within Labour HQ. Advisors are reportedly split, some urging him to double down on his reform message, others warning that only an election can salvage public trust. As of now, no additional statement has been scheduled, no debate has been confirmed, and every moment of silence feels like a countdown to something inevitable. What will happen next? That's the question hanging heavy over the nation tonight. Will Starmer bend to public will and announce a vote? Will Parliament be forced to act under pressure, or will this become a full-blown democratic standoff with consequences no one can fully predict? In the next section, we'll uncover the hidden power players influencing this moment from behind closed doors, advisors, donors, media barons, and how backroom deals and silent alliances might already be shaping the next move in Britain's most explosive political drama in a generation. As millions of citizens chant in unison for change, demanding a new election and the immediate restoration of public trust, something far more calculated is playing out behind the political curtains. While all eyes are fixated on Starmer and the visible storm surrounding his announcement, there exists an entirely different battlefield, a shadowy arena where unelected influencers and silent power brokers are making decisions that could determine the very course of Britain's democratic future. This is the part the public rarely sees. The part where deals are struck in private rooms, loyalties are traded like currency, and promises are made not to voters, but to those who fund the campaigns, shape the media, and move the gears of government. Without ever standing at the dispatch box, at the center of this quiet power struggle sits a cluster of senior advisors, individuals not elected by the people, yet more influential than many MPs. According to internal reports leaking out of Labour HQ, Starmer's controversial delay in calling an election was not purely his own decision. It was heavily influenced by a high-level advisory team consisting of economic strategists, PR consultants, and data analysts who warned that calling an election too early could risk destabilizing the economic recovery narrative. Labour is hoping to sell in the coming months. These advisors reportedly cited polling data and voter sentiment metrics that suggest Labour still holds a fragile lead, but one that could be shattered if the opposition succeeds in shifting public blame back toward Labour's leadership vacuum. But there's more. Several political insiders now claim that Starmer has come under immense pressure from major financial donors, many of whom have invested heavily in Labour's return to power. These donors, some of whom operate multi-billion-pound investment funds and media conglomerates, are said to have voiced concern over the unpredictability of a snap election. With markets already wobbling from international instability, these power brokers are pushing for a stability-first strategy, fearing that any abrupt political shift could trigger a wave of economic uncertainty, particularly in the housing and financial sectors. In short, money is speaking louder than democracy, and Starmer is listening. In addition, growing speculation surrounds the role of powerful media executives, those who control the headlines, frame the narratives, and dictate which stories gain national traction. Whispers from within major media circles suggest that there has been coordinated editorial steering in favor of measured reform over electoral upheaval. Several newspaper front pages in the days following Starmer's statement seemed strangely aligned in tone, echoing themes of healing, rebuilding, and unity, rather than focusing on the people's outrage. Critics argue that this represents more than just editorial choice. It may point to an orchestrated attempt to shape public perception and deflate the growing calls for an immediate vote. But not all media voices are marching in lockstep. A new wave of independent outlets, online channels, podcasts, and whistleblower platforms have begun to tear apart the connections between these elite circles. Investigative reports are beginning to name names, tracing donations from private, lobbying firms to Labour's rebranding teams, exposing links between think tanks, advising the party, and international corporate interests. One particularly damning exposé revealed a confidential briefing where Starmer allegedly assured certain business leaders that election talk will remain symbolic until the right timing aligns with long-term party goals. If true, this would confirm what many already fear, that the will of the people is being strategically delayed, not due to legal constraints, but because of political calculation and elite preservation. Meanwhile, inside Parliament, some MPs are quietly revolting, not through fiery speeches, but through silence, distance, and coded statements. Several backbenchers have reportedly declined media interviews in recent days, avoiding public alignment with Starmer's stance. Some believe these MPs are waiting to see which way the wind blows, unwilling to tie their political futures to a decision that could become catastrophic. Others are allegedly considering crossing the floor, forming independent blocs, or even backing internal coups if pressure from constituents becomes unbearable. The idea of a fractured Labour Party is no longer unthinkable. It's being discussed in WhatsApp groups, private dinners, and urgent party meetings happening behind closed doors as this crisis intensifies. And while Labour's internal tensions boil, Conservative strategists are making their own moves. Tory insiders are said to be conducting war room simulations, preparing for multiple scenarios, snap election announcements, mass protests turning violent, even emergency parliamentary sessions. Their aim is to capitalize on chaos. Some hardliners within the party have even proposed triggering legal maneuvers to force a confidence vote, hoping to corner Labour into a position where calling an election becomes the only viable escape route. Though legally complex, these tactics reflect just how deeply this crisis has infiltrated the machinery of governance. Meanwhile, the monarchy's silence has become deafening. Though it is constitutionally neutral, the very fact that the palace has refused to issue even a symbolic statement about public unity or democratic values has fueled speculation that senior royals are concerned but cautious. Insiders report that the king has held multiple private audiences with high-level advisors, including constitutional experts and senior figures from the Church of England. While no direct intervention is expected, the mere acknowledgement of this crisis within the walls of Buckingham Palace signals the gravity of what's unfolding. This is no longer just a political problem, it's a constitutional reckoning, and through it all, the British people remain in suspense. Each hour without clarity fuels more anger, more unrest, and more speculation. Every press briefing is dissected for hidden meaning. Every delay is interpreted as betrayal. The social fabric is tightening like a wire stretched to its limits, ready to snap. In the next section, we'll go deeper into the escalating public action, the organized resistance now spreading across all corners of the nation, and how the UK might be on the brink of witnessing a historic, full-scale showdown between the governed and those who govern. The pressure is mounting, and if something doesn't give soon, the consequences could be irreversible. The pressure is undeniable. The voices of millions are echoing across the nation, and the demand for accountability is louder than ever. But this isn't just about one announcement or one leader. It's about the future of democracy in Britain. If you believe the people deserve, if you think it's time for transparency, not shadowy influence, then now is the moment to stand up and be counted. Don't stay silent while the system bends behind closed doors. Share this video to amplify the truth. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss the next explosive update as this story unfolds. Most importantly, drop your thoughts in the comments. Do you believe Starmer's decision was truly his own, or is he just a puppet in a far larger game? This is your voice, this is your country, and the world is watching what happens next.